Support for Radio Friends comes from Home Instead Senior Care, providing trustworthy, kind-hearted senior home care services in your loved one's home. All caregivers are thoroughly screened, extensively trained, professional, and reliable. Home Instead is all about providing the highest quality home care service to fit you and your family's needs. Plus, if you would be interested in becoming a caregiver, they offer great part-time positions. Give them a call at 573-442-4333 or check it out at homeinstead.com. Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Thursday, January the 25th. Our special guest today is the first Poet Laureate of the state of Missouri, Walter Bargen. Good to have you here.
Paul, it's always a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and Happy New Year to you.
Double that to you.
Okay. Now you got a couple of poems that you wanted to share with us today. We're not talking about snakes this morning, right?
I do mention snakes, just the word snakes. That's it.
Okay. All right. What's the first poem you have?
The first one is called Utterly Gone. The second poem is called Utterly Again, and utterly is a play on the word udder from cows.
Okay.
Cow udder.
And the topic of this poem, is it dealing with the cattle mutilation?
Yes, it is.
And UFOs?
And UFOs, yes.
All right. So here's Walter Bargen. What's the name of it?
Utterly Gone.
Utterly Gone. Here's Walter.
This was first published in the summer of 1979 in the South Dakota Review, a small literary magazine.
And you wrote it in 1979 also?
Well, I think it was probably 77 or 78 that I wrote it.
Okay.
Okay. So it's quite old. In midsummer on Forrest Gladney's farm near Okita, Missouri, oaks are dense. The small pasture is barely visible through an occasional break in the leaves. Who would hike back this far, over the rocky slopes, snakes, and poison ivy of these hills, and leave, with the right eye, the right ear, and the tongue, utter gone, the sexual organs defiled? Is that what they think? The cuts through the hide are surgical. The blood has vanished. An unearthly smell has kept coyotes and vultures away from the carcass. Something is getting closer. The night aches with lights. Did the Angus tongue break the news that there are two of each of us, and the one they take is a stranger to us all? And so what happened in between me writing this poem and the publication of my new book, Too Quick for the Living, is that I received a phone call from someone in a southern state on the East Coast, and they had questions about the last lines to that poem, but it was 20 years later.
Really?
And I was going, well, what is this all about? And so I wrote this poem called Utterly Again.
Okay.
A man calls from across the country. He's urgent as cumulus clouds crowded in a phone booth at Atlantic and Boardwalk. I hear him clearly, speaking out of the grip of my hand, the rain of his syllables flooding my ear. He's calling me about the last two lines to a poem published 20 years ago in a small South Dakota literary magazine. I don't hear thunder or the drumming of a downpour, but he's persistent, urgent, 40 years old, working in an engineering firm that won't promote him until he completes a degree in anything. The poem describes cattle mutilation, the details that turn our heads away even as our eyes move farther down the page. There's the irony of someone, them, traveling light years, hundreds of millions of miles to surgically remove the right ear and eye, the tongue and udder, all the blood and the sexual organs, and from a grazing Angus, the highest life form in a tick-infested back 40. We talk for half an hour. He says each morning for a week he's repeated those last two lines, and the one they take is a stranger to us all. I mumble something about Descartes, consciousness, the mind-body duality of Western culture. I don't believe I've helped. He says it's just what he needed to finish his paper. I ask who is teaching the class and at what college. but he says he was asked not to reveal names. Later, after his generous thanks and promise to have a check in the mail for copies of all my dusty books, the check never arrives, I begin to wonder, to have doubts, who it was I spoke to. And maybe I shouldn't have given my address to a stranger. Isn't that what we warn children not to do? How could anyone have found that obscure issue of an obscure magazine, to have read a short esoteric poem and then assigned it for class discussion? Who was I really talking to? Maybe they think I know something, that these words are a code and a plot. In the room by the phone, it's growing dark. The ceiling begins to rain. Take me to your leader.
That's rather intriguing. And this is true?
Yes.
You never found out who it was?
No.
So do you have any suspicion who it may have been?
No.
Was it someone from this world, or was it someone from beyond?
Who? Maybe it was the president's secret government that was working on whether UFOs are real or not. Mm-hmm. I have no idea. But it just suddenly struck me. What was that about? And so I wrote a poem to.
That really is intriguing. Mm-hmm. That's intriguing. How do you get your inspiration to write poems? Does it just pop into you at one point and say, I'm going to go sit down and write about this, and it flows out?
Generally speaking, I would say that it's usually after the fact. I carry a notebook around, and I try to jot little notes down, but often I forget to jot them down, and hours later I'll go, oh, why didn't I write that down? Now I can't remember exactly how it was said. So it's just everyday living.
Yeah. Years ago, 35 years or so ago, I used to write a column once a month for a senior magazine. And I'd sit down at the computer, and I would have no idea at all what I was going to write about. Nothing. Mm-hmm. It was total blank. And I would just start typing, maybe one word or two words, and then all at once, it would just start flowing out, and I could write it in about 20 or 30 minutes.
I think that a lot of people have discovered that's a very excellent way in which to become a writer. You just start writing.
Yeah.
William Stafford said, if you have trouble writing, lower your standards.
Yeah. Okay.
And that really works.
If people want your books, Walter, how can they get them?
Too Quick for the Living is at Barnes & Noble.
Okay, and it's on Amazon.
And it's on Amazon.
And it's in the trunk of your car.
And it's in the trunk of my car.
Or your backpack.
Right. Yes. I will be reading at Osher on February 3rd and at the Columbia Library on January 17th.
Okay, so February 3rd, Osher.
Osher.
Okay, all right. Walter, thank you so much for coming by, and I look forward to having you come back again.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Our first poet laureate, Walter Bargen. I thank you so much for joining us today, and I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email, pepperp@missouri.edu. Bye-bye.